Okay, up next, I'm going to show you the basics of how to use a spray can. Whether you've never used one before or you've only used one a few times, I'm going to show you as much as possible so you can really feel at ease whenever you're painting. I just had a lesson a few hours ago with somebody who wanted to know about how to use a spray can as a complete beginner. So it's fresh in my mind and I know what the person was asking, so I think that should be pretty useful. A couple of things I'm going to say before we get started. Number one, always use a fat cap. This orange one is a hardcore cap. You can get an Astro cap or Cobra, the yellow one. Get a fat cap, because if you learn with a cap that's very, very wide and you learn how to control that cap, then your can control is going to be so much better, so much quicker. You'll get a little bit frustrated in the first hour, but believe me, this is not going to take long, like maybe a full day, and then it's going to benefit you in the years. Literally, like if you learn with a really fat cap, I'm going to show you what you have to do. But then if you learn with this, most of your paintings will be with a fat cap. What that does is it allows you to paint really quickly. You can do a lot of fills quickly, and at the same time, you can do a lot of details with those big caps. As long as you use a can that's low pressure, like MTN 94, Montana Gold, Belton, Molotov, those cans will help you because they are low pressure. I definitely recommend using a quality paint when you're starting, because if you know what you're doing and you're using a can and it's not working, you know why it's not working. But if you're a beginner, you're like, is it my technique? Is it the can? I don't know what's going on. So you don't need too many parameters to go wrong. So if you use one of those better cans, I would say, you'll get on better, because then you'll know that it's just your technique that you need to work on. So fat cap is definitely the one you want. Another major thing that I kept telling the person today is to relax. Like, it sounds very obvious, but if you tense and your shoulders are all, cramped up or whatever, you can't paint properly. You're just going to do like these big lines and they'll drip and it won't work. And you'll be like, why isn't it working? It's frustrating. As you're doing these exercises, try to have a hand in your pocket, or at least, just relax. Maybe hold your phone, maybe not at first, because you're not going to copy anything unless you're watching this video. You really want to relax as you're painting, and then you want to press slowly, and this is how you get the lines that you're actually after. Okay, so to start with the position, you basically want to face the wall, and if you put your arm like this at the 45 degree, you basically want to touch the wall with your your fingertips. Most of the time, people will paint like this. This is way too far. You want to be really close and comfortable. Hand in your pocket if you want, and then you can paint. You don't really want to paint over there. You don't want to paint up there or down there. As this is an exercise, you want to make it as easy and comfortable as possible for yourself. So for me, as I'm right-handed, I'm going to move that way. As I'm right-handed, it goes about here, like a circle about this big. This is where it's the most comfortable. I can go here. As I start to reach to the left, it's not as comfortable. And as I go higher up, it's not as comfortable either. So you really want to just make it easy for yourself. Just paint here, eye level. So hand in your pocket, and then you can start doing your lines. Now, the most important thing when it comes to spray painting with a spray can, is to master how to do those thin lines. Because if I want to press fully, that's just easy. And this is, as I said, this is a very big cap. It'll do those really big lines. And this is a low pressure can. So you want to, as you do the big lines, you want to wait as you're pressing down. But I'm jumping ahead of myself. The reason I always say, instead of using a skinny cap, use a fat cap, is because it's a lot harder. But as you're beginning and you don't know any better, might as well start with the harder technique, and then you'll save a lot of time. Trust me on this. Feel free to use a skinny cap as well. It's nice and rewarding, but it's not going to help you in the long run. Okay, so you're going to be holding the can in 3 different positions. You're going to be holding it this far when you're doing your fades and your big fills with a cap like this, or your flares, all that kind of stuff. You want to go about a couple of inches, or let's say about 10 centimeters away from the wall, with the can straight. This is for when you want to do your fills or your small fades, that kind of stuff. And then you want to go almost touching the wall and pushing the can and tilting the can forwards like this. You're literally almost touching, and this is for all your detail lines. Now, I don't know if you can see in the camera, but I have to move my finger slightly back. Otherwise, if it's too forward, it'll touch on the wall. And also, you want to press at the back of the cap. Because if you look at a cap, you can see there's a bit of black, so it's going to be easier to see. There's a cut at the back of the cap. This is to let the gas and the paint out of the can. Now, the cut is always at the back of the cap, regardless of the cap. So that's why you want to press slightly at the back, and I'll give you the most control, and it'll allow you to get those thin lines that we're after. Now, you don't really want to put the tip of your finger on the cap, because it's not comfortable. What you want to do is you want to put your finger about halfway, but still you want to press in the back of the cap. And it might take you a while to feel how you need to press. You don't want to press too much at the back, because otherwise the cap doesn't really work and it'll hurt your finger. But you want to have your finger, say, about a third of the way in the cap, not in the middle, just about a third of the way. And if you go really close, but you don't quite touch it, so this is touching, we just want to move back a tiny bit. And now what we want to do is want to press as little as possible on the cap. At first, this is what you're going to get. But as you painting more and as you're practicing more, you'll see that it's actually a lot easier than you think to control. So what you want to do is you want to wait. You basically want to, I'm pressing now, and I'm pressing more and more and more, and eventually I'm going to get surprised by it. And then it comes out, and then I can do my lines. Now I'm going to explain this. You're probably not going to get this line straight away, but give me 15 minutes and you will. So what you want to do is you want to press slowly and just a little bit at the back of the cap. If you try and force it, you'll get this. So you want to press, and you want to keep pressing, but very gently, because what we're talking about is like microns, hardly anything. So you want to press just a bit more at a time. I keep pressing, and eventually it comes out. And then I can do my lines. At this point, you have to fight the urge of wanting to press too much onto the cap and move too fast. Most of the time, people grab a can and they start going super fast, and then it's really fuzzy, it doesn't work. Whenever you're painting, you want to have confident lines. Some artists paint super quick. You know, they'll do a full-on artwork in like 2 hours. But when you see them painting, they just go whoosh, whoosh. But each line is exactly where it's supposed to go. And this is what you want to strive to do as an artist. You want to have confident lines. You know, when you're starting, you're like, oh, I don't know, you know, and you keep going over yourself and stuff. It's fine, it's normal, we've all done that, it's the beginning. But as you progress, you'll see that your lines will be more precise, and you'll be more confident with your lines. So to start with, we're just going to do some simple lines. So again, we've got the big cap. So as I know how it works, for me, it's fairly easy to do a line that's fairly small, even though it's a big cap. But as you're starting, your line are probably going to, you know, your lines will probably look like something like that. But don't worry, it's the beginning, we're here to learn, give it time. So what you want to do is you want to angle the can in the direction of the line as much as you can. You can't always do it, but as much as you can, you want to. So if you're going down, the can is upright. If you're going horizontally, you want to tilt your can so it's horizontal. One thing to note, if a can is horizontal, say if you try to paint a floor or a ceiling, the inside of this, there's a pipe, and the pipe obviously doesn't have any paint as it's tilted slightly with the back up. So it'll work for a few seconds and then it'll stop working. Just shake it, do a couple of blasts, and you carry on. But when you're doing lines like this, it won't matter so much. So to start with, do a few lines. Don't worry what they look like. If it's like this or whatever, it's fine. And as you painting, you try to apply less and less pressure on the back of the cap, and you try to move slowly, but also as you're doing this, you want to try and keep your distance to the wall as close as possible. You want to fight the urge to pull the can away. If you pull away, you'll sort of flare like this. So you want to try and practice to do loads of thin lines and try to make them thinner and thinner like that. And as this is a demo and an exercise, this is what you want to do. Don't worry if your lines look like potatoes to start with. Just keep practicing, keep pressing as little as possible on the cap, and keep your distance to the wall as minimal as possible, and then you'll get those really good lines. Now, another thing that you will probably do as you're starting is to start from here and do that, which will give you a couple of dots. I'm exaggerating, but a lot of the time this is what you'll get. You don't want to start painting from where you are standing still. You want to move, start painting, stop painting, and carry on moving. And then in motion, it does something like this. So I'm moving, painting, stop painting, and I carry on moving. Moving, painting, stop painting, carry on moving. Moving, painting, stop painting, carry on moving. And what that does is it gives you a line that's fairly consistent all the way through. It doesn't have to be perfect, but like say you're painting beards, for example, or hair or hairs, or whatever. As you're doing all of these lines, you're basically always in motion. You're not starting still, where you get all of these two dots, start and finish. You want to paint in movement all the time, because this paint is quite thick. As you stop pressing on the cap and you're moving, there's still paint coming out. So it's kind of like a plane dropping a cargo in motion. So you want to move with it. So you want to move, start to paint, stop to paint, carry on moving. See, I'm moving, painting, stop painting, carry on moving. Another thing that's really good for learning how to get a good can control is to do dots. So I'm going to try and not block the camera. I'm going to do some dots. And as you can see, as I'm making them bigger, I'm holding on to the same spot for a while because there's a lot of paint to cover the area. I also need to wait even longer for all of this area to be filled. So if I'm close to the wall, I press a little bit. And if I'm away from the wall, I can press more because there's more distance, there's a bigger area to be filled. But let's not worry too much about the big ones because they're fairly easy to do. What you want to do is start with circles that you're happy with as far as the size of them. At first, when you do them, you probably get quite a few drips. And that's just normal. It's just because you're pressing a little bit too long. What you want to do is press less. With this cap, it's reaching its limit with as far as the dots because it really wants the paint really wants to come out because it's such a high flow cap basically. So this is when, if you're in motion, like doing a line, it's not going to be a problem. But the moment you start doing some dots, then the paint has to go somewhere. So for this cap, this is pretty much as small as you can go. Once you go any smaller, the paint really wants to dribble. And this is the reason why you would use a thinner cap like this one, a Skinny Pro, Because even though you can pretty much get the same lines with a hardcore cap or a skinny pro, if you're doing, say, you're painting a portrait and you're painting eyelashes, with this cap, you'd be like, oh, this is great. I got good can control, it's working. And then suddenly you get this big stuff happening. It's happened to me, and then you've got to, paint over and wait for it to dry a little bit. And, it's a faff. It takes a long time. So especially on a sunny day when it's hotter and there's more pressure in the can, it's better to have a skinny cap for those very fine details. But if you're used to using a really thick cap for even tiny detail, like that, your can control is going to be so much better than once you put an even thinner cap on it, then your lines are just going to be ridiculous, and with a lot of control as well. So I'll just put this one on, and even though you're not going to see a lot of difference as far as the thickness of the cap, of the line, it's pretty much the same thickness. The one I've just made is a lot smoother. This one has a lot of splatter all around the edges because, again, this cap has a high flow and it really wants to come out with a lot of paint. This one isn't. This one is a cap that allows just a little bit of paint to come out. If I press fully, that's what I get. I don't get something massive like the one above. And if I'm doing dots, then I can control and get much smaller dots that don't actually drip. But maybe some of them. It's actually because I'm not in front of the wall properly. There you go, that's better. So this is not bad, but normally when I use this paint with this cap, I don't get this amount of drips. So sometimes the paint, or the actual can is to blame. I'm gonna grab another color and see if it's better. Okay, so now I got my favorite color, which is chocolate brown. This is a lovely color for pretty much everything. I find there's this sort of dark brown in nature everywhere, and this is just such a cool color. Also, it's very highly pigmented, so it's a color that just works so well. It may shock you to hear that there's a difference between the colors with the cans, but it all depends on what type of pigment they're using. So for some reason, I'm not too sure how they make it, but this brown works super well. So I'm going to do a few dots and see if it works better. Yeah, this is more like it. So you see this can works perfectly, and I can even make smaller dots that don't actually drip. So you see these ones are smaller and aren't any drips. Sometimes you don't know why, but two cans from the same manufacturer of the same color, one will work fine, one will not work fine. In this case, it's a different color, so that's fine, but sometimes even the same color just will work differently. Different batches, I don't know. So, sometimes it's good to have multiple cans on hand. If you want to practice your lines, I highly recommend this one, chocolate brown. I just get really good results with it. So when you're doing thin lines like this, the lines you're getting are just so thin. It's really satisfying. And when you're painting details with this color, it's just perfect. Like eyebrows, I use this for eyebrows. It's really good. Okay, so now we're going to do fills. Okay, so in order to do fills, we're going to do a box. So whenever you're painting with a can, you want to go slow, one line at a time. Take your time. There's no rush. So I'm just going to do a square. So one line, one line, one line, one line. You don't have to go fast. It's fine. It's best to go slower. It'll make you go faster. So how do you get crisp lines or sharp lines? What you want to do is you want to have your cap close to the wall. The edge that is close to the wall is the one that's going to be sharp. So if I press and I'm aiming that way, you can see there's a sharp line here. and there's a fuzzy line on this side, which doesn't matter. If I was to aim down, I would have a sharp line here and a fuzzy line further down. So as you can see, this works well. Now what you want to do is you want to apply it in bursts, because if you try and do it in one go, sometimes it works, but this is more later on down the line. So to get as much control as possible, you want to go in little, in a few bursts. So, okay, I was aiming downwards. Now I'm going to aim towards the left, and the cap is going to be fairly close to the wall. Now I'm going to aim up in order to get a crisp line here and a fuzz here. Again, when the can is horizontal, it's not going to work for very long. This is quite a small area, so it worked pretty well. Now I need to go on this side of the camera, and same, I'm going to have the cap close to the wall on the left, and I'm going to aim towards the right. And then once that's done, I can just fill the inside. I'm only going to do one because it's the same principle, but when you're doing those, do as many as you want, as you can. This is going to be a really good technique for you to get crisp lines. Now we're going to do pretty much the same. We're going to do a circle, just a different shape. Okay, and what you want to do with a circle, I'm going to put one on the inside, is you want to aim towards the center. So as I'm here, the cap is going to be close to the wall, giving me a clean edge on this side and a bit of a fuzz around here. Then I'm going to paint it in movement. So I'm going to go from side to side, and I'm going to press. I'm basically going to go from side to side, but I'm only going to press down, side to side, and press down, side to side, and press down. It's easier if you go than if you're pressing all the time like this, you're not going to be accurate. It's going to be something like this with loads of build-up is not great. The best thing to do is you aim for the center and you just do a simple one. Go as slow as you can bear. Whenever you're starting, if you try and go too fast, you will struggle. Don't try to match my speed. I try to slow it down to try and show you each movement that I'm making, but sometimes it's a bit hard for me to go a bit slow. Honestly, you give it a day and you'll get there, no problem. But go slow at first. So I'm going to go from side to side and go. And then I'm aiming to the center. And I'm doing little bursts. You see, I keep aiming towards the center. Okay, now this is awkward. So I need to either go on the other side of the camera, or what I can do is I can tip the can down and rotate it a bit. It's a bit harder to see, but and I'm aiming towards the center all the time. And same for the top. And once this is done, again, I can just cover all of that. Again, do a few of those. It's going to help you get more accurate. I'm only going to do two because it's no point to do too many. It's the same principle. Okay, now that you've done those, what you want to do is you want to do some circles. So the point of this exercise is to try, it's not to have perfect circles, but it's to have a consistent line. You want to try to avoid doing something like this, where you've got thick lines, thin lines, and all kinds of business. You want to keep it consistent. It's okay if you want to make thin ones or thick ones, but try to be consistent on the size. You don't want to deviate and make it all kinds of different thicknesses. This is going to help you be more accurate. However, you really want to use a thicker cap for this. So I'm going to go back to my ultra fat cap and then do the same. Again, I said this brown is the color that's going to give you absolutely the most control. Same principle. I tilt the can forward. I press at the back and I press as little as possible. And then you want to do some circles. This cap sometimes will give you lines that are even thinner than a thin cap, than a skinny cap. It's just the edges are not as clean, and sometimes it will do something like that and misbehave. But it's such a good cap to use. Sometimes you'll get this where, because you're so close to the wall, you will touch the wall. This is a brick wall and it's not even. So even though I'm trying to keep the same distance, some of the bricks are protruding, so you're gonna get caught. It's fine, it just happens. But as much as you can, you want to try and keep the same distance. So if you want to do loads of circles like this is gonna help you. Now, another exercise that's really gonna be beneficial is to do a continuous line. Because when you're doing a continuous line, it allows you to adjust. So you can start thin and then you go potato, but whatever, you just carry on. You don't worry about the drips and stuff, it's fine. It's just, as you keep doing it, you keep refining your spray and you try to keep the same distance. It's okay if you vary the distance willingly, but don't get surprised by you in control of the can. So I can do some thin ones. You see, I started to, I pressed a bit too much close to the wall, so I'm starting to get drips. And then I sort of let go, but now I'm getting some paint missing. Doesn't matter. I'm only stopping to explain this, but when this happens, just keep going. It doesn't matter. You're practicing. Oh, and another thing as well that's so important, especially when using a bigger cap. You pressing on the cap, but because the amount you're pressing is so small, you literally, I mean, we're talking microns. It's so small that you're pressing on the cap, and then obviously not this much, but you're pressing, and then you keep pressing gently, you're pressing a bit more, and eventually the paint comes out. If you try and force it, if you rush it, then you'll get the potatoes. So a lot of the time, like sometimes I'll be filmed or something, I'm basically saying the same things as I said to the person today, but sometimes I'm being filmed and I'm just doing this and the person thinks I'm pretending or whatever, but it's just because I'm waiting for the spray to come out, all while I'm actually pressing slightly more, a little bit more at the time, just a bit more. I'm pressing just a little bit more on the cap. If you don't do that, you get this. So when you want to get really thin lines and you're using a fat cap, you want to be surprised by the spray. So you're there and then you... But if it doesn't work, then just wait, keep pressing slowly, and eventually, then you're good. Also, if you've got your finger in the position that you're happy with, the first one is the one that, you know, you're trying to gauge how much you're supposed to press. Once you've got that, so now the next one is easy now because you know how much your muscle memory in your finger and in your brain, you know the amount you got to press because you've just pressed it, you haven't moved your finger. It's there, I know exactly how much to press, but take it off, put it back, and now I've got a gauge again. Oh, see, I tried to rush it. Come on. You saw the amount of time that it took. I wasn't actually pretending. I was actually pressing slowly a bit more, a bit more, a bit more until the paint came out to avoid all of this. But once you come on, once you've got it, and it's cool, you can let go. You've got a slight amount of pressure on the cap, then you know the amount that you're supposed to press. So now it's not a problem because I've already pressed. The thing is, I'm showing you the harder technique on purpose. A lot of artists don't bother with this because they don't manage to do lines that are thin with a big cap. I'm not special, many artists can do it. But if you're learning to use a cap that's way too big, like again, this is what this cap is made for, is to do like very thick lines like this. But if you learn how to control this cap and this can, you know, to do some very thin lines and thick lines and very thick lines, then this cap becomes very versatile. And as you're painting, you don't have to keep swapping caps, and then it allows you to paint a lot quicker. Now, the last thing I want to show you with spray cans, because you pretty much know how to do thin lines, how to do fills, how to do all kinds of things. Now we're going to do fades, and fades is going to be one of the most useful things that you're going to learn. So in order to do a fade, let's say we've got two colors. Of course, you can have more. But what you want to do is you want to start, so we're going to have the brown on the left and the pink on the right. What you want to do is you want to start on the left-hand side, and you want to go towards the right, and you also want to pull away from the wall. And then you do the same with the other color, and then you do it one more time. So you start painting here, and then you're going to go towards the right, and you're going to go away from the wall. I'll give you some like that. So now I'm close, moving away. A lot of the time you'll do fades with the skinny caps because it's too windy. When you've got an Astro cap or ultra fat cap, whatever, and you're this far away from the wall and you're trying to do a fade, sometimes if it's raining heavily or if there's too much wind, because your spray is this far and you're applying so much, there's so much paint flying towards the wall, a bit of a breeze and it'll just do that with your spray. And a lot of the time, it probably won't get rid of all the spray, but then it'll create some funky patterns and it's not ideal. So sometimes you have to work with it. You don't just do a fade simply. I mean, those in the studio, it's easy, but if you outside, sometimes that's what you got to do. So again, you start from close to the wall, then you go towards the right and away at the same time, obviously. So you're going into this diagonal direction. Now we're going to do the same with the pink. I'm going to go on this side. So I'm going to press. I'm going to go towards the left and away at the same time. So in this direction. You see, I'm sort of doing an arc in that direction and I'm moving away. Making it a bit thicker so you can see a bit better. And then you want to do the first color again, and then blend it one more time. Should have made it a bit thicker, but whatever. Right. So now I'm going towards the camera and towards the right at the same time. And this is how you do your blends, how you blend multiple colors together. You can repeat the process a few times till you're happy with your blend. Another thing, obviously, like we were doing with the fills, you can be close to the wall, and that's going to give you a blend. A lot of the time, that's what you actually end up doing. Say you're doing a portrait, that's the nose. On the side of the nose, that's what you'll do. You won't just paint straight down like this. You'll do things in a fade. a lot of what you're going to be doing is going to be subtle, and it's going to be fades after fades, that kind of stuff. And if you want to fade within a fade, you can use the same angle. And see, it's the same thing. I start close to the wall, and then I move towards that color and away at the same time. And this is why I'm taking the time to explain really what I'm doing, because it doesn't always show in the camera what the person is actually doing. So again, I'm starting from close, and then I'm going to go down and away at the same time. I can come back if I want it a bit more, if I want a better blend. It gives you a good blend. Now, there's one thing I nearly forgot, is cutbacks. Cutbacks you're going to use all the time. So a cutback is basically, you can paint a color here. And then to have a clean line in between this and the pink, I can use the same principle where I'm close to the wall to get a crisp line and then a fade. But this time I can have the cap close to the first color and then cut it. And as you can see now, I've got a nice clean line by cutting this first one, and it's called the cutback. I can also cut the pink one with a brown again in the same fashion. As you can see, I've got a nice clean line. This is really useful when you want to do very thin lines. It will work in some instances, not all of them. But now I can make the line thinner by simply moving towards the first color. And now I've got a very thin line. So cutback is something that you're going to be using a lot. Say you're doing a portrait, it's just a battle of, cutting back and doing blends, because it's not really, straight lines like this. Of course, you have some, but the majority, especially if you're trying to do photorealism, the majority is going to be a battle of blends. Everything is blending together. This is your bread and butter when it comes to spray painting, as well as the thin lines, doing your thin lines. So doing your thin lines like this, your cutbacks, your fades, and of course your fills. This is pretty much all there is when you're using spray cans. Okay, and just for a bit of fun, I'm going to show you how to do flares. So flares are probably not the first thing you want to learn, but it's all about bending your wrist like this. So you want to start thick, and then you go thin. It's a really good exercise because it's kind of like in airbrushing when you're doing the dagger strokes. It allows you to go from thick, very thick, to very thin. So you have to press fully, and then you press very, very lightly as you're moving. So it's not the easiest, but say if we were to do ABC. So you want to go slow at first because there's a lot of paint coming out. And as you're going close to the wall, you're pressing hardly at all. And also, you want to stop painting when you're about here, and you want to carry on moving because there's so much paint still coming out of the cap. You got to stop. There's a delay. You got to stop. You got to lift your finger and stop painting as you're moving, and that should give you a good result. So, if we do ABC. That's kind of fun. Now if I put another color on top of it, I'll do it a bit smaller. You can see the wrist, I'm pressing fully, and then I stop about here to press, but I keep moving. Very fun way to paint, and I recommend it. all of these techniques are what you're going to use all the time in your portraits, your car, your letters, whatever you do. These are the things you need to practice, basically. There's just one thing I didn't mention, and this is the position for when you're doing big lines, basically. So, say if I want to go from here to here and do a line, regardless of the line, doesn't matter. I don't want to stand here because if I try to go straight there, then the line is, not going to be great. What you want to do is you want to think ahead. So you want to be in the middle of where you're about to paint. You really want to open up when you're painting big. You see sometimes people painting really big things, and they're like, they're moving really big and bold, whatever. So I want to go in the middle of the 2 points, and then this way I can do something that's better. You always want to go in between what you're doing. Again, going back to portrait, which I'm guessing the majority of people are buying this course to paint portrait. Whenever you're painting, again, say this is somebody's portrait, and we've got say we've got the neck and a big line in the neck. I can't just go like that. It's not going to be cool. I've got to think ahead, and I've got to position my body in the right way. So say, I don't know, I've got a big fade to do. I've got to go like that. I've got to be ready in advance to do the move. So I've got to think, all right, maybe start with my tiptoes, and then I'm going to go like that. It's going to be a good line. As you can see, the line is fine, as opposed to, I'm exaggerating, but believe me, when you're painting, that ends up happening if you're not in the right position. Positioning your body when you both airbrushing and spray painting, it's super important. If you're painting and you're like that, you're not going to get good results. You need to be really in front of it, nice and comfortable, and then you do your thing. If you're doing the big lines, step back a bit, maybe be in the middle of what you're doing, and then you do your lines. You also don't want to be complacent and stay in one spot and basically press down, because otherwise you'll have a flare. You want to go with it. And sometimes, as you may have heard, your can will scrape the wall, and it's totally fine, doesn't matter. You try to avoid it, but you will touch the wall from time to time. It's no big deal. Okay, I think that's giving you quite a few exercises to practice. The circles is a really good exercise. It's fairly simple to do, but it'll give you good technique. A continuous line is a very good one. It's kind of simple. You see, again, I'm trying to show you, and I'm pressing on the cap, but nothing's happening. So I'm just there. I'm pressing more and more and waiting for the paint to come out. If I rush it, I'll get a big, and then it'll drip. And if that happens to you, and it will, and it happened to me, and it happened to all of us, as it happens, it's fine. Just try again, but take your time. Let the cap go easy with the pressure in order to get more control on the cap. And there we go. So that's it for the basics of spray painting. Let's get on to the next topic.